In this video, we'll look at how to use the quadratic formula. First of all, why or when to use quadratic formula? The answer is quadratic formula tells you the zeros. It also solves equations. When this equation equals 0, it's the same thing as finding the zeros, finding the x-intercepts, or solving this equation. So, first thing, quadratic formula gives you the zeros or solves equations when the equation is a parabola that equals 0. Okay. Next thing, you can also find zeros by factoring. I would recommend trying to factor. But this equation I specifically chose that it wouldn't factor. You can try on your own. You should watch the videos on factoring if you don't know how. You could use quadratic formula if it did factor. Just factoring is a lot faster. But in this case, no choice. It doesn't factor, so I need to use quadratic formula. How do you do quadratic formula? You have to know the formula. But luckily, it sings well to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. And here's the song. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And maybe for some of you that sounds childish, but if it helps you remember it, who cares? Make sure your fraction covers everything and your square root covers everything. And I'll say it again in case you don't like the song. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If it helps, sometimes you can label, this is the A, this is the B, this is the C. Or sometimes even I write them on the side so I don't mess up the signs. The A is the coefficient on the x squared, 3. The B is the coefficient on the x, which is negative 11, include that negative. And the C is the constant, 5. So quadratic formula is going to solve this, going to find the zeros or find the solution here by using these letters. So let's sub in negative B. Okay. First thing to watch out for. This is negative b, and b already is negative. So you get negative minus 11, which is minus a minus. What's minus a minus? A plus. That's why I put 11 here. It's negative minus 11. Negative, negative, plus. So I get 11 plus the square root of b, that's negative 11 squared, minus 4 times, and you could use little x's for times. I just prefer brackets because I don't want to get confused with variable x. Not that that's an issue here, but we have an x here, so I'm sticking with brackets. The a is 3, the c is 5, and if you saw, I made sure my square root covered the whole number pieces I wanted to square root, all over 2 times a. And a is 3. It looks like this will factor. I should have tried factoring this. Well, nonetheless, I'm going to keep going, but it would have been faster to factor. Try factoring it after you see the answer and see if you can factor it. You'll see it's much faster than quadratic formula. Let's keep going with quadratic formula. X equals 11 plus or minus the square root of, what's negative 11 squared? You can use your calculator, no judgments. It's 121 minus 4 times 3 times 5. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 5 is 60. I get this. All over 6. Alright, so I'm going to keep simplifying. Notice I'm just working inside the square root. Everything else is staying. Did you have to make this so crazy long? No. As long as it covers the number, you're okay. 11 plus or minus the square root. What's 121? Take away 60. Don't need a calculator, but I am. 61. So it doesn't factor. Good. I chose one that you really needed to use quadratic formula on. Divided by 6. Okay. Here's another point where sometimes students get confused, is what to do now. I'm going to have two possible answers. Either it's 11 plus square root of 61 over 6, or it's 11 minus square root of 61 over 6. So I'm going to separate that into two pieces, and I put arrows clearly telling the reader, there's two separate pieces here, I'm going to divide them into two. Either it's x equals 11 plus square root 61 over 6, or it's x equals 11 minus square root 61 over 6. And now solve. I'm going to do that all at once on my calculator. 11 plus square root 61. 11 plus square root 61. I get that. Don't forget to divide by 6. And I get a decimal. I'm going to round to 3 places, so put a rounding dot. And so rounding to 3 decimal places, it's 3.135. And now I'm going to do the same for the other side. It's 11 take away the square root of 61, divide by 6, and I get x equals approximately 0.531, but the fourth thing is a 6. Since I'm rounding to 3 decimals, the 6 means round up. So it's approximately 0.532. So what did we do? We used quadratic formula and we solved the quadratic. That is, we found the answer for x that solves this equation or finds its zeros. And the answer was approximately 3.135 and 0.532.